This is going to be a new experience for both of us because, like you, I've never been here before, but there's legends surrounding this place that concern monsters. We've had some heavy rain this morning. It's wonderfully warm and humid, just the sort of conditions that the carp like. So let's go and see if we can find one. Right, this looks like I've got as spot as any to start. Looks fairly shallow. I've got to be very quiet because I'm standing on a sort of landing stage here, and every little footstep I make will be transmitted through the woodwork, through the lake bed to the fish, because these carp, they're incredibly sensitive, and they can, in fact, I think they see through their skins. They certainly listen through their skins. Oh, there's a great cast to start off with. Let's do that again, shall we? It's better. Drop the float in that little ripple there. In fact, there's a fish out there because I can see the way the light is angled towards me. There's a carp bubbling on the bottom there. He's probably rooting around for shrimps, bloodworms, probably bloodworm larvae. And when he roots around the silt, little patches of bubbles come up. And that's the giveaway. When you see those bubbles, you've found your carp. There's a bunch of maggots on my hook. About 20 maggots, in fact, on a size 6. I know that doesn't sound terribly natural, but if you're a hungry carp when you come along and you find a great spider of maggots, or rather an octopus of maggots on the bottom, I think you'd probably find that quite succulent. I've even flavoured them with curry. I'm getting a bit of problem with drift here, but that's fine. I don't mind that. Yes, I don't mind it if the bait is not stationary. Most carp anglers would find that, well, they would think I was talking out of my hat. But I've caught a lot of carp with a drifted float when they're feeding on the bottom and sending up lots of bubbles, and your bait is just tripping over the silt. It's a little bit like a wet fly fisherman when he's working his nymph across the bottom to try and attract the trout. And it actually works with carp too, because the bait just trips past their noses very slowly, and sometimes they'll take a moving bait much more quickly and much more readily than they'll take a stationary bait. Now there's some fish in this lake, so I hear, that grow to almost 40 pounds, which is a very big carp indeed. And there's every chance that we might see a fish like that, but of course whether we're going to catch one or not is another thing. I've waited a whole season, a whole year, just to get one bite from a monster carp, but I have had some monster carp, but they're extremely cunning. You can throw perhaps 24 grains of sweet corn out under a willow tree, and then you can climb the willow tree and look down into the water and see a big fish coming along, and then you can, because you've taken your rod up with you, you can then cast out your bait and drop your sweet corn in amongst the others, and the fish will root around and there'll be clouds of mud and bubbles will come up, and the fish will take every single grain of corn except yours, and you'll swim away and there'll be 1 grain of corn left on the bottom, and that's happened countless times. Makes you wonder how you catch any fish at all. Because I don't know how these fish behave, I'm going to have to just sort of play it by ear. Every carp lake seems to have its own rules. It's the fish who invent the rules. It's a bit like a game of chess with a Grand Master. And the Grand Master is changing the rules all the time, but there's always a different set of rules for a different water. And I've got to play this game very carefully, watch which way the fish are moving and watch how they approach the bait and watch how they feed, and perhaps they'll start rolling in a minute, or perhaps they'll start cruising and basking in the sun. They do all sorts of things. They're full of character. But I'm positive they're aware of my presence. And this is the thing. Once they're aware of your presence, you've got to be very, very careful how you move, because you only need to sort of wave your arm around and it's like saying boo, and then woof, off they go. They're a bit edgy now. I can tell the way that the bubbles are beginning to move perhaps a little bit further away from my float now. As long as I just sort of melt into the background and generally merge into my surroundings, the fish will recover their confidence and come back. Perhaps it would be an idea if I offered them some samples of my bait. I'll just catapult a bit of curry flavoured maggot and sweet corn mix. Can you think of anything more delicious for your carp? Just over the float, there's a bit to the right, a bit to the left, and just a little bit beyond. And now I'm going to recast. This drag has rather brought my gear around, but as I said, I don't mind that. It's not a problem. If a real gale starts to blow up, because we've had all sorts of weather today, if a real wind starts to blow up, I'll take the float off and just fish free line. But I like a float because it registers the most sensitive bites, and a fish can pick up the bait and move the float, and yet it won't move the line at the rod end. You'd have to wait some time before the line moves, but because the float is moved, you can tell what's happening, and bang, you can be in, and the carp can be there long before it's actually moved the line. But most carp anglers don't use floats, and I think they're missing out on something there. Well, this is very pleasant. The sun's come out now after a morning of heavy rain. It's very, very warm, very humid. As I said earlier, that's the sort of conditions that carp like best. We're at this lovely lake. We've got all afternoon to find ourselves a carp. If we don't find one here, we'll go somewhere else and find one, because there's lots of little bays and little nooks I can see up and down the lake. Under the trees, we can crawl in under the trees. And it's a sort of a place where you could find a carp almost anywhere. But you do have to look. You can't just expect to sort of find one feeding and cast straight away. I know that's what we were hoping, but it might be a bit of a wild hope. But then, fishing for big carp is always a wild hope. Of course, even if you don't catch a fish, you can't have wasted a day at a place like this. I mean, every moment is a pleasure. I've got damselflies hovering about me. There's a heronry just up the head of the lake, and every few moments, it seems, the herons are curving in. You'll probably see one go past me soon. They don't seem to be wanting to come down here. I think they can see me. I heard a kingfisher not long ago. There's every chance we're going to see a grass snake. Perfect grass snake country here. And of course, at any minute we might see a big carp, but I think we're more likely to see an anaconda at the moment than see a big carp. They just seem to have melted away again. It's not through anything I've done. I think they just switched off for their afternoon siesta. Or maybe they've gone and had their tea somewhere else. They're not particularly interested in my bait at the moment, but they will be. They'll come back. We'll probably go and try somewhere else. In fact, I think that's a very good idea. Now there's no signs, now there's no fish here to disturb by my getting up and sneaking away. I think that's what we'll do. I'll reel in and we'll go for a little wander around the lake and see if we can't find a fish feeding, and see if we can't present that fish with a bait and get him to take it instantly. Baiting krill. There we go. Oh, suffering from fisherman's knee. Blood's gone out of my kneecap. Still going to keep down out of the skyline. I don't want to spook anything. Now I felt, because of the way the fish were just edging a little bit further over, when I was fishing on the other side of the lake, that this was the place to come to. I'm precisely opposite my original station, and the fish, I hope, still think I'm over there, and I've come here to intercept them. I should have left the dummy sitting on a creel over that side, and then maybe it would have worked even better, but I do feel the fish are still aware of my presence, and they're coming right in under the trees here, very, very close to the margins. In fact, I can see some bubbles from just under the bow to my right there. I won't put any ground bait out just yet. I'll just wait a second. I'll put some bait out in a minute, but I'll leave it for a minute, because if the fish come along and just see that one bit of bait, they won't have to spend too long making up their minds. They'll either take it instantly or they'll just drift on. But I think they're patrolling these fish. I don't think they're actually in a very hungry mood at the moment. They're just constantly on the move, constantly looking about for the little tidbit, but they're not really getting their heads down and throwing up those great, huge cumulus clouds. They're just the little whiffs of cirrus clouds on the bottom as they dip down, take the odd little shrimp or whatever, and then drift on again. But when they really get going, it's like thunderclouds on the bottom. Actually, it has gone very still suddenly. The bird song has virtually dropped to silence. There's a few little pipings of some baby moorhens, but apart from that, even the breeze has died down to almost nothing. It's as if there's an expectancy in the air. There's an electricity about the place. This is the moment when the monster moves up from the deeps and smashes me to pieces. Moorhen just going off in front of me there. That's something else to watch out for. If the waterfowl are looking suspicious of you and beginning to move around in an edgy sort of way, then the fish notice that, or the carp notice that anyway. And if a moorhen bursts out from the undergrowth and gallops across the surface, the carp realise that something has frightened it, and they are ever more warier then. So it's always a good idea to remember that something flying landed on my nose then. So it was a good idea to remember to keep even quieter in the background as you move around the lake as when you're actually fishing on the edge, as I am now, because if you spook the waterfowl, you spook the fish as well. As the light begins to sink, it's nearly always the trigger for the fish, especially the bigger and more cautious fish, to begin to move out of their deep holes in the middle of the lake or wherever they've been hiding all day. There's just a gust, the last breeze of the day. That'll soon be over. And when the light starts to go and the big fish start to ghost up the lake, that's the time I like to be lying in wait with a hook full of corn or some maggots or something like that, and hoping that I can intercept one. This really is a beautiful landscape. These lovely solitary oak trees over on the far hill, and the pine trees and that little clump of beech trees right at the very top against the sky. And here we are down here, nestling in the seclusion with all this undergrowth and this beautiful sheet of water and several quite exquisite carp. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some hemp seed out where those carp were patrolling. Because the thing about hemp seed is it's very oily. It creates a little cloud, an oily cloud, but a very delectable cloud if you're a carp. It's a nice vegetable oil. It's not a nasty petroleum oil. I'm talking here about high protein oil. And the carp love it. Not too much, just enough to get them going down, and then I'll put a bait right in the middle of that carpet of hemp. I have a choice of baits. I think at the moment I'll use a little paste. And this paste is made out of ground hemp and eggs mixed together to form a sort of nice nutty dough. And that, in amongst the hemp seed, will catch us our carp, I hope. Carp patrolling this little area all the time now. There was those ones we saw when I first peeked in to this little gap in the willows. And I can see several more, some moving on the far side. There's 2 or 3 fish moving right at the top of the lake. They're not just keeping to the edge. Often they just creep around under the margins, under the overhanging willows. But these, they're looking more meaningful. They're looking as if they're going to take the first thing they find. As well as the closeness to nature that you get when you're fishing sort of harmony you feel with your surroundings and the way you grow into your surroundings as you sit here, hidden amongst the undergrowth. And there's something else which is just as important, and that is sort of harmony with yourself. I actually feel you get closer to yourself when you're fishing, because everything calms down, everything quietens down. You have time to reflect and recollect, and perhaps it's something to do with your primeval dreams, the ancient dreams of your ancestors. You get very close to those when you're fishing, and so you feel more complete at the end of the day. Well, I think this heat really has affected the fish rather badly. They are all enjoying life much too much. They're just sitting out there, beginning to bask now. And I think really there's only one sensible option now for the carp angler. There's only one thing that he can really do, and do well, and that is reel up his line, find himself a nice bit of comfortable bank, some soft dry grass, and a tree to lean his head, and even a mossy boulder that has put his feet up, pulls down his hat over his eyes, and lets the world go by. Through the undergrowth. One thing, the fish can't see you as you creep into position. And that little wren singing his heart out. I hope he's saying hello to me. Hello, there's lots of fish around. These nettles are 6 feet tall. Going round the corner here. Our first glimpse of the water. Magnificent. Magnificent. Angler's paradise. Oh, that really is lovely. I'll just sit myself quietly down and watch and see what's happening before I put my bait on. Lovely. There must be a dozen fish out there with their heads near the surface. They're a bit too far out for me to cast just with a bait alone, so what I'm going to do, I'm put up some of this amazing floating putty, which unfortunately you can't get now. I don't know why it went off the market. Maybe if I stole its virtues well enough, it'll come back on the market, but anyway, here it is. It just mould it on like this, and it doesn't move. That's the beauty of it. Once it's on, so it's, you know, someone's knocking in a rod rest over on the far bank. Just as well we're over this side. There we are, look at that. And that's quite weighty. That'll cast a long way, and it'll land with the minimum of splash. And it won't move up and down the line, and if it does get caught in the weed, it'll just come off. There's my flavoured dog biscuit. 2 on, I think. Sometimes just put 1, sometimes put on a bigger hook and put 4 or 5 on. I keep ringing the changes. All right, here we go. There's a fish out there. It's quite a long way, but we'll see how we do. He's not happy with one rod rest, he's going to knock in another one. I very rarely use a rod rest, so I like to hold the rod most of the time, especially in a situation like this when the take can come at any second. Sometimes it's just a short pull on the line and they let go. So you've got to be there to strike. Now there's a number of fish typically moving further over to my right and further over to my left than where I just cast. So I'll leave it a short while and then I'll probably reel in and cast again. In fact, no, I'm going to go straight for it. Take that check off. I'm going to put another one out straight away, just to my right, because that fish is looking very interested. I don't think I spooked them then. I think it was just put in a couple more biscuits. They're probably still just a little bit hard, I feel. I got a soft one. I soaked them before I came. Oh, there's a nice soft one. But they need to soak right the way through to the middle, really. He's obviously going to use 3 rods, that man over the other side. I must go and complain later on. All right. Oh yes, that'll do. He's moving in my direction. I didn't want to land it on his head because that would have been the end of him, of course. He would have gone very quickly away. It's not like casting a fly on top of a trout. You can do that very, very delicately. Well, you can drop a single dog biscuit near a carp very delicately, but when you're using a little blob of putty, it's perhaps best to drop it a yard one side or the other. They can smell it. Not the putty, he's using 4 rods. They can use they can smell the bait, not the putty. Well, there's a fish has just taken the first 2 bits of bait that I cast out, the bit that I struck off the hook when I reeled in. The mouth has come up and very delicately sucked them down off the surface. So that's a very good sign, because if one starts doing that, the others will soon get to hear about it. They seem to telegraph these little bits of information around the lake somehow. In fact, it's very odd how carp telegraph news and seem to switch on and off as the day goes on. I remember on a lake fishing with a good friend of mine, Jasper. We'd been fishing this lake all evening, all night, and were well into the next day. And then I moved down one end of the lake and he moved up the other, leaving the net in our original spot. We only had one landing net, and we both hooked a fish simultaneously. It was the only fish we hooked in the 24-hour period. And we both hooked it at either end of the lake, and we left the landing net in the middle, so we were shouting to one another to bring the net, and of course neither of us could do it. Neither of us could move because we were attached to a fish, so we both had to go in and cradle the fish ashore. And sometimes a fish will leap in one corner of a lake, and at the same moment another fish will leap at the other side of the lake. Sometimes 4 or 5 will leap together, synchronized leaping, as if there's been some trigger shot through the water. Maybe it is some sort of impulse, and maybe electrical impulse or something. All very mysterious, but rather lovely. They're so sensitive, these carp. If a swallow was to fly across the sun and the shadow passes across the water, you'll see the fish boiling off the surface and going into a crash dive, one after another, in the line of flight, just from a swallow's shadow. It's quite incredible. Of course, if a flock of pigeons goes over, then the whole lake explodes. But, and if you trip on the bank and just kick a root or stumble, again, a big swirl from the margins, and that's another fish knows you're there. if you bodge a cast and splat the bait into the surface straight away, sort of close to you, and they know all about that, and they soon send the news around from one to the other, and they start skulking, and then it becomes very difficult to tempt a fish. A fish directly under. In fact, I think he just seemed to have taken the bait then, and I can't see it, but the line. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's more like it. Straight delivery. That's better. Yeah, baby. That weed is pretty thick, but he's coming back. There he comes. Unfortunately, I've gone under a reed. I'm under a reed, dead reed stem, which has just sort of knotted the line slightly and has given me a bit of a... Just hang on a minute, see if he kicks himself free before I really start turning into the heavy work. He's well out there in the weed. He's gone deep down. He's run out under 20 yards of the anti-reversal, like I should have done in the first place. There he goes. Still one, I can just see where he is. Unfortunately, the line never moved once then as it went down into the weed. I can see where the point where it goes into the weed is... Come on. I wanted it to swing forward then and cut through, but he's gone down pretty deep. Yeah, it's beginning to move now. Come on, maybe. Very, very slight give. Didn't feel like a tremendously big fish, but it went off very fast. Ripped off the line. He's gone down through yards of it. Thick weed. Luckily, it's not really deep, this pool, so here he comes. I'm cutting the line up all the time now. Just see, there it is. There he comes, using the line like a hacksaw to get through the stems. The fish isn't too well parcelled up, thank goodness. He's still moving around. It's obviously well hooked. What we need is a gilly with a boat here. Let's go out there with a long pole and prod the line and get it... Oh, here it comes. Get it free. Here he comes. Yep, that worked. Yep. Yep. And he's on the go again. There he is. Up we come. Coming in with a great parcel of weed around him. And a net. There we go. Yeah, it was well lodged in weed. Ah, the beautiful mirror. Almost fully scaled, built like a torpedo. Lovely fish. Oh, well, it was well worth waiting for. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. Scattered scaling. Well scaled on the... Just taken in the corner of the mouth. Excuse me, fish, while I just remove this little splinter of steel from your leather-like chops. This won't feel a thing to the dentist. There. So have a look at his other flank. And that fish is probably about, it's not a terribly big fish, but 13 pounds, maybe 12. We won't bother to weigh him. I do hate reducing fish to a number, a mere number, when really they're so glorious and so beautiful. There, we only wanted to have a good look at you, and we'll slip you back now, all right? Lovely fish. Fine one to start the day. Cheerio. Go back and tell your big brother that I'm still looking for him. Back you go. There we go. See you again when you've grown into a 20-pounder, perhaps. Right, here we are. We've walked all the way around the lake. As you can see, the sun's got up and I've taken off my jacket. It was getting a bit hot. The midday sun is getting up into the 80s now. We've come round to the shallows and you can see fish behind me, just beginning to take the odd biscuit from the top. I've shot out a few biscuits. And it's probably the furthest point from that pitch where I was fishing previously, which is obviously the best place to come to. Now I'll just shoot a bait out and see if we can't get an even bigger one here. That'll do for a start, but it's not really where I want it. I want it in the weed. I have to put on a little bit more weight and really knock it out there a bit. In fact, there's no point in that bait just drifting around in the open water like that. I shall reel in straight away as soon as I've got rid of this little demon tangle out. That fish is beginning to take quite enthusiastically over there. Of course, it's really good to visual contact we've got there. Let's just sit down. Here he comes again. Here he comes again. He's just going to... Yep. See, I originally thought this was only a small fish, but it's turning out to be a much bigger fish than I imagined. It's growing all the time. It's not huge, but I thought it was probably 3 or 4 pounds to start with. But it's another 10 plus, I think. It's already got off the net once. Here we come. I was just about to lift. I want it right up to the block before I... It's putting in a wonderful, wonderful show. Close in. See the bend of that cane. That's the good thing about split cane. It wants to come back on itself. It doesn't just keep bending. Unlike carbon fibre and fiberglass, which just bends like an elastic band in the end, cane always wants to try and unbend. always gets to a certain point and will bend no more. So you play to that limit, and you always know where you are. And I think because of that, you can actually play a fish in slightly more effectively with split cane than you can with any other material. My rod maker, Edward Barder, will probably be very pleased with this fish. And we'd be all right. That's him. I think we've got to break the line straight away. There we are. And you can settle down. Fine, fat mirror carp. About the same size as the first, probably. About 12. There we are, look at that. Different sort of shape altogether. The last one was much more streamlined than that. This one, much more rotund and, yeah. A portly specimen. You are lovely. About time too. Let's have a look at you on the other side. That's better. Show you a good side. There you are. Much better looking fish on your right-hand side. That's better. Well, you're a lovely portly mirror carp, but those flies off your nose. It took all afternoon to catch you. I think you're worthwhile, though. I really do think you are. 12 or 13 pounds. Not as big as your grandfather, who's still out there. Tell him when you see him that we're still looking forward to meeting him, and perhaps we'll see him again tomorrow. Well, that was a lovely dream I just had, and in fact I inspired myself to come back to the original swim, the bit of water we fished when I first arrived, because there were a number of carp cruising around then, and they tended to drift off a bit, of course, as soon as I arrived, but they've come back now, and if I'm a little bit more canny and can get a bait to them, I think we may be in luck. Right, now, there are one or two very nice carp right on the far side there, over by those reeds. So I'm going to have to keep my head down quite so far as I... That'll do. Just short of the reed bed, and I'll leave it there for a few minutes, and the way the carp are patrolling backwards and forwards along the edge of those reeds, one of them is going to converge on that bait within 2 or 3 minutes. Let's hope he takes it. Praise be to Isaac. This is a take. Yes! I'm in. And that was a beautiful take. It just as I said, it was coming past the edge of the reeds there, and decided to take the bait as soon as coming into my reeds. Actually, it looks like a good fish too. I think she decided then, having seen, God, it is a big fish. It's coming, this is a mean trick, it's trying to get me under my own feet. They occasionally do this, Up we... Oh yeah, yeah, it looks a 20-pounder, all right. I think it saw the snag. There's a bit of what looks like an old, the extension of an original landing stage here, and the posts go right down into the mud. And I think this fish knew all about them because that's what it wanted to. That's what it was coming for. That's what it was driving at. Immediately, it almost caught me by surprise. It came in so fast, the slack line began to appear on the surface of the water, and it's quite easy to control now, because of course I'm right above it, and it's much easier to control a fish from above than it is from the side. So, with luck, as long as I can keep it out of that snag, a fair old bend in the cane. Look at that cane bend. Oh God, no, it's going in. Ooh, very close. I think we can get the net. Yep. Coming up. I don't like the look of that snag one bit. Going for a good run now. Oh, she's trying to get me around on the right-hand side now. Yeah, I do believe we have a 20-pounder. Pulling very well. I decided that it obviously wasn't going to do much good with all those snags around, with me directly over the top of it, but it put up a very, very strong bid for that stanchion down there. It was going off down towards the dam then. Now it's seen my side of the argument. It's starting to just, yeah, I think I'm going to actually, yes, we're definitely approaching that wonderful time when I can put the net in the water and come on, up we... A fully scaled mirror, perhaps 30 inches long by the look of him, and I reckon we have a 20-pounder, as I said. Up she comes. Coming round. This is dodgy. Kiting right. Very dangerous, that, going into the reeds to my left. It could have made a little thrust then, and I think I would have been scuppered. That's it. Once the head comes out, extend line a little bit, get a bit more tip of that rod. Oh, I didn't like that. I don't know if I trust this landing stage, but I'm going to just... Oh, lovely. That's got the wonderful specimen. Almost went under the net then. Over you come. Got quite a long fish. Only just net was caught up on that drawstring then. Oh God! So I won't put him down just yet. What a fish! What a fish! How's that rod doing? Not too well, eh? That's all right. Let's take the hook out. Oh, it's lightly, very lightly in the top lip, that leather-like lip, all it felt was restraint in that lip. Didn't feel anything else. Not like a bit in a horse's mouth, it was just a pressure of the cane it felt. That is a wonderful looking fish. Yeah, now that's 20 pounds. A 20 pound fully scaled mirror. A beautiful way to end a very, very delightful day. I think we'll slip you back. Say goodbye to the camera. Bye bye. I think this is where we came in. Well, we came, we saw, and we finally, after a long time, we conquered. But we did catch a glorious fish and we had a wonderful time, and I think I demonstrated that carp are extremely cunning customers. And they're not always as easy to catch as they might look at first, but perhaps we'll go fishing again one day.